السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. بارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خير for the invitation to discuss this very important crisis that we're going through. Today, yesterday, last month, last year, 10 years ago, 50 years ago. It's been going on for a long time. And the changes that have been made in the past 70 years, more than that, are not that substantial. And we know, of course, as Sheikh Karim said, we know as Muslims what is about to come. There's no doubt about that. The challenge is, what do we do in the present? How do we understand this challenge? How do we navigate through it? Especially for us as Muslims living in the West here. There's a lot of red tape. That's the reality. There's a lot of issues that need to be considered when addressing this topic. And that's the reality. It is an unfair conflict. It's an unfair thing. Because Muslims, not only can they not really address the issue as they should, right? You're also limited in what you can do and what you can say and so on. So within all these limitations, as I always say, there's the golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules, isn't it? And within those limitations, you have to try to do something for the sake of Allah. And when we will be standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, Allah will ask, so what was your contribution in this? What did you do? What did you say? How did you address this issue? And of course, when we look at the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, one thing that we understand is that the Prophet ﷺ was a strategist. Now people can say different things when it comes to the topic of Palestine, Gaza, because it is such an emotional issue. We as human beings, Bani Adam, we as Bani Adam were emotional. When something happens, we react. That's what the Prophet ﷺ told us. No, لا تغضب. Don't get angry. Of course, there's a difference between being upset for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the advice the Prophet ﷺ told that person, لا تغضب. If you look at the context of the hadith, you'll find that the Prophet ﷺ was addressing an anger that is reactionary, emotional, uncontained, non-strategic. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. And that's kind of what you get when you are not able to control yourself. And a lot of Muslims misunderstand the position of some people because they're not screaming, crying, throwing themselves on the ground. But they're more strategic in their understanding of the issue. And then they will say that you're not doing anything for Palestine. You're not doing anything. You're not saying anything. You're not addressing the issue. Indeed, there are some people who are just cowards, and they're not saying anything. Sadly, even though they can, even though they have influence and strength, and that is the reality. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question them on this. But then we find people who are just, no matter what comes to them, whatever news, whatever video, whatever it is, they'll just make sure that they make a statement, whether it is true or not, and so on. And we go against the advice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if a fasiq comes to you, بِنَبَإٍ with any kind of news, make sure that you verify. It's not me saying it, this is Allah telling you. It's the Prophet ﷺ telling you. So we need to separate when understanding this issue if we want to have any real change. Because for the past 7 years there's been reactionary emotions, talks, different things, and still we are in the same problem. I was just scrolling through some videos of mine, old videos of mine, and I reached a video from 2006, I believe. It was entitled My View on Palestine Issue. I looked at it, it was like, literally we're talking about the same things. Our brothers and sisters were being killed, massacred, and the Muslim Ummah were screaming, crying, calling it all kinds of crisis, humanitarian, waiting for the United Nations to come and take care of things, and the international community. There was all kinds of emergency crisis meetings, you know, people, a bunch of middle-aged people flying on private jets, using taxpayers' money to discuss problems that are not going to be solved. There was, of course, marches, boycotting, and all that. Yet we're back in the same position over and over again. My question is, we're going to try, obviously, maybe in this conference to understand what can we do differently. But my question to all of us is, why are we in the same position? Why are things not changing? Why are we not making a difference? This is something that we need to take home and ask ourselves every single night. Because, with all due respect, and I'm not saying, please do not misquote me or misunderstand me, that there's a lot of effort that's being done by non-Muslims, and I know we've seen the videos, and wow, and mashallah, people are reading the Quran and all this. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide people through all kinds of different means, no doubt. But we are being happy for, I don't know, are we really targeting the issue at hand? Still, the numbers in Fajr are weak. Still, people are not coming for Jummah. Still, we are not changing our positions, our lives. There's still a lot. We have to be honest with ourselves. Like, I'm honest with myself. We're not returning back to the Quran and Sunnah. Everyone's got opinions. I'm not saying that some of the things that are being done are not having an impact. What I'm saying is, what are the priorities? How do we get back to issues? So people are talking about this, yet they're not praying. They're not able to come back to the Salah. And we know from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that when there's any crisis, any issue, when the Prophet ﷺ was in a crisis, was feeling down, the first thing he would do is, he would turn to Allah in prayer. Right? He would turn to Allah. Yet still many people are not praying. I'll go to such an extent to say that what I was shocked by, and people are going to be upset maybe, is when I was in Palestine. the numbers in Fajr were very low. It was very sad to see that the numbers in Salah were very, very low. And I was like, whoa, wait a second, what's going on? Why? Where are the people? And I was talking to them. I'll talk to people on the street, people that I know, Shabab. What's going on, guys? Different answers. Again, people are gonna get emotional when you talk about these things. So I'm very careful with how I say stuff, because people are gonna come like, brother, how dare you? Our brothers are being killed. And this. I know. I have family there. It's not that I'm just trying to make myself understand based on Allah's revelation and the Sunnah of the Prophet as to how we should do things. What are priorities? I'm not saying don't do this, guys, don't do that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what is a priority? Like how do we, because we've been doing a lot of the same stuff, yet still things are not really fully changing. One of the things that we need to understand when dealing with this conflict is to understand our history. Some history of how and why we reached here. Because what's happening, if you notice, in the narrative that we're hearing, what's happening is now the narrative is getting blurry. It's getting blurry. And people are not understanding context. So, again, please put aside names, put aside affiliations. I just want to, when I use examples, it's just to drive a point, right? So recently Andrew Tate had a discussion with Piers Morgan. Interesting, very interesting discussion. The point that Andrew was trying to make was that there's a context to what's happening and to why people act the way they do. Okay? For example, within this country, there's certain groups and minorities that are in a certain position, and social scientists, they look at that and they say, well, it's a lot of the trauma and a lot of the behavior that we're noticing is due to their position or circumstances during their developmental stages or critical stages in their development, such as their young years, teenage years, and so on, depending on what social status, which area, for example, of Chicago they were raised in, and what are the social circumstances around their upbringing. True or not? You can do this and you can look at research on this, yeah? This is the way it is. This is science. Yet someone like Piers Morgan was not understanding that he was just a very yes or no type of, he was trying to get a yes or no type of answer. And that's kind of what people are seeing. Well, this is what the Palestinians are doing. So is it yes or no? And like, no, wait, there's a bit of a context. Something happened before. No, is it yes or no? No, but there's something happened in 1917. Something happened in 1920. Something happens in 1948. No, we don't want to hear about that. We're dealing with today. Can you say yes or no? And this is what's happening with this narrative, that the media and the propaganda is making the world look at things as black and white only. By using, and I'm going here from a psychological, cognitive perspective. It's much easier for human beings to deal with black or white. Right? 1 or 0. This team versus that team. Liberal versus conservative. It's easy to deal with binary things. Simple. But the world is not like that. There's a lot of nuances that we need to understand. But the narrative now, through media, is using certain labels, certain slang, certain terminology It makes people say, well, the way I see it, it's very simple. It is terrorism versus freedom fighters, or whatever. The label terrorist comes up, right? Which is pretty much almost now established, as much as we've tried to work it out, as much as we've tried to show the world, as much as research has been done, it seems that it's a Muslim monopoly. It's like, that's it, it's attached to us, man, you cannot escape it, right? And you know, they've done interesting studies where they say certain words and they'll ask the people, like, what's the first image that comes to your mind? Because our mind works based on concepts. When I tell you tower, right away in your mind you know exactly by concept what a tower is. It's almost like a little image pops in your mind for a fraction of a second. So if I tell you Eiffel Tower, I'm sure you've seen it just for a fraction of a second, right away. Your brain right away associates, right? So they've actually done tests like this where they'll say certain words and they'll be like terrorist. Right away some guy with a turban or, you know, beard or something like that will come in their mind. So it's almost like, that's it, it's almost like you cannot escape it. It's been drilled into people so much that it's almost impossible to take it out. And this in psychology is called the repetitive effect. If I keep telling you something over and over and over and over and over again, news, social media, newspaper, Instagram, Twitter, everyone's talking. After some time, you will start believing it. Your brain gets programmed. It's so hard to get out of it. To the point that even Muslims now believe that we are terrorists. Like, Muslims are confused. They're like, yeah, this is terrorism, right? So it's so hard to deal with this because the narrative has been so polarized, it's so like, it's black or white, that no matter what you try to say or explain to people, just like Pierce did, no, that means you're with them. No, that means you agree with this. No, that means you're endorsing terrorism. No, that means you're... Who said anything like that? Who said anything like that? But no, it must be like that. Oh, who cares about 7 years of constant torment, occupation, theft, killing, you name it? Who cares about that, right? No, it's what's happening today. November, whatever was the date. October 7th, right? That's it. October 7th. No, but wait, there's no October 7th. Okay, yes, bro, October 7th was bad. Okay, but what about, no. October 7th. You see, the tactic. I'm asking you to think about it. I'm asking people to analyze it from a cognitive perspective. The way our brain works. If I try to explain to you, okay. For example, as a psychologist, you would look and analyze, let's say, a criminal. Okay, and criminals go under psychological evaluations, right? And people, why do they do it? They try to understand what drives a criminal to commit a crime. This is science. The legal system has this. The American legal system has this. The judgment, the jury goes under psychiatric evaluation. The accused, the accuser, people get psychologically evaluated. So they try to understand what drove this person to do whatever behavior they did. And they will look, and subhanAllah, in some cases, they deem him not fit to stand trial. Imagine that. In America, if the psychological evaluation, psychiatric evaluation, deems that you've gone through such trauma where your cognitive behavior has been, or processes have been impaired, and you're not fit, and you are not thinking correctly, irrationally, not able to understand reality, you're deemed not fit to stand trial. And you could be dismissed from a crime. Why is this important? It's not the same, I'm not drawing a perfect parallel between these two, But to understand that a person who is gone under severe trauma, generational trauma, your mother and your father and your grandmother and your great-grandmother have been tortured and killed, and you've seen your daughter being killed and your house taken and this and that, what do you think is going to happen? Honestly, for any person who understands any bit of psychology, humanity, what do you think will happen? Putting aside the conflict, I'm just talking about the psychology of a person. I want these people who are accusing and who are polarizing, making it so black and white, October 7, Piers Morgan specifically, to think, what do you expect might happen? Oh, you have to do this, you have to understand human psychology, human behavior, trauma. Understand what happens in the mind of a person. What happens? Right? It's not so black and white. It's not at all, whatsoever. But people don't understand that. It is so sad to see that even though our brothers and sisters are the oppressed, they are also considered the perpetrators. Even though our brothers and sisters are the ones who are being killed, they are considered the bad ones. Even though our brothers and sisters are being massacred, their children are being, come on man, they're targeted. Are you telling me with all that strong intelligence, with precision, that you are just, is this collateral damage? It's not collateral damage. Any expert, war expert would know that this is not collateral. Not to mention all the propaganda and the videos that are out there that have been verified, that are basically calling for these kind of things to happen. Right? Yet still our brothers and sisters, the narrative is such that they are the ones who are the perpetrators, the criminals. Let's draw another example. If I come to you, we talk, and then you somehow decide to punch me in the face and take my coat. Steal my coat. It's my coat. You take it. And I attack you and try to take my coat back. Put aside laws, put aside, I'm just trying to understand the example. Am I not entitled to take my coat back? It's mine, man. I worked for it. It's mine. Or my dad gave it to me. And his great-grandfather gave it to him. It's my coat. Why'd you punch me in the face and took it from me? It's not yours. So of course I'm going to fight you. 100% I will come to you and I'll hit you and take my coat back. So who's the perpetrator here? Even though we're both engaged in violence, no doubt. But who is the initiator? Who is the perpetrator? Who is the one who started? I didn't come and try to take your coat, you took mine. Would anyone with any ounce of reason and rationale, would they say that I've done something unreasonable to try to take my coat back? No, no doubt. No doubt. So we need to understand this, because there's a context, my brothers, and I want to go through about 5 or 6 main points that are very important for us to know and maybe to go and research more about. And I don't want to take too long because I know timing has been a bit upset, but I want you to remember these points so you can go and do a bit more research about them. We cannot forget this. And with whatever we're doing, let's not just spread videos of different things happening, but let's go back. If we are trying to fight this narrative. That's much better. If we're fighting this narrative, let us bring back to the people the whole context. The whole story should be said, not only parts of the story, but we should know the whole story. The Palestine has been under Muslim rule for a very, very long time. Now people will say, and I want you to pay attention to this point, for Muslims, okay, so you know what to say. From a religious perspective, people are going to say, yes, but the Jewish people were there from before. Islam didn't exist, right? They say we were there from before, the temple, first temple, and so on, was destroyed by the Ottomans. The second temple, the rebuilding. What's the catch here as a Muslim? Who can tell me? So Moses, finally, Ben Israel, even though they're not allowed to, okay, but finally, some people from Ben Israel enter that area. What's the catch? So people say, yeah, but we were there first. You guys came in, Omar Khattab, okay, he conquered Jerusalem. So the Muslims conquered, we just took it back. What's the... Exactly, okay, so there was a lot of people before that. Excellent. There's a lot of people, many nations that came through that land. Exactly. But for us as Muslims, there's one little important point here. Okay, Ibrahim. Was he Jew, Christian? حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. يا أخي, they're Muslim. They follow, even the followers of Musa alayhi salam. Ben Israel, who's Israel? Yaqub alayhi salam. Yeah, they submitted to Allah. They're Muslims. They followed the prophets, not rebelled. They were believers, yeah? So they're Muslim. So it was always Muslim. Yeah? Muslims were there from the beginning. Yeah? So even if they say that, in the end Muslims were there. Yeah? It's just the way it is, okay? You have to understand that. Okay, if they make that argument. It's not about chicken and egg, like who came first. Yeah, it's not about that. Alright? So that needs to be understood. Very important. Alright? Very, very important. Alright? Any deviation from following the prophets, it is a deviation. Other than that, whether Ben Israel or before them, they're Muslim. Okay? Anyone who deviated from the Sirat al-Mustaqim, they are deviations. But Islam has always been universal, from Adam alayhi salam till the Day of Judgment. There's only one straight line. The stops on that line, different prophets, different nations, we know, for us it's very clear. There's no like this chronological, progressive, evolutionary, religious, theory. First the Christians came, or Jews, and then the Christians, and no. For us there's no such thing. Okay, Islam started from the beginning. From the beginning. Yeah? Very clear. So for us there's don't get caught up in like, oh yeah, you guys were there first. Because sadly I'm hearing videos from Muslims, from Arabs, talking that this is the art of, I'm like, who? Sorry? What you talking about? Like, get your facts straight, yeah? Alright, so that's number one. However, when we look at, just from a humanistic perspective, staying within these so-called international laws, okay, because the Muslims, mashallah, we're very good citizens, aren't we? We're always obeying the law, All right, so within the Ottoman Empire, when they were ruling this area, you have Jews, Christians, Muslims, many different people living there very peacefully, no problem. Okay, I know someone, for example, who is a Jew, and he was born in Palestine under Ottoman rule, and he was Palestinian. And when the Zionists came, he had to leave. He left. He left that area because of that itself, because of what was happening. Okay? And he is Palestinian. He says, I am Palestinian. He says, I am Palestinian. He had a document that he's Palestinian under, written in Arabic, under Ottoman rule, management, but he was Palestinian. You understand? So these people lived there in harmony. Well, what about now? Who's ruling? What is there's no harmony. It's massacre. So if you're thinking about from a humanistic perspective, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. That's what they say all the time. You're telling me, don't kill us. Don't do this. No. We're peacemakers. What? Hello? وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ هُمُ الْمُفْسِدُونَ وَلَكِنْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. No, indeed you are. And that's all we hear in the media. No, we want peace. Make peace. Because you have the rules, you got everything. You got the airplanes, you got the drones, you got the tanks, you got the intelligence, you got everything. Make peace then. So it's a superpower. Okay, when the Ottomans, they were the superpower at that time, yeah? Did they do what is happening now? How come there was no guards, no this, no border checks? Every border check I passed through, the gun was pointed at me. I was like, what's wrong with you? Like, I'm the only one, bro. Put your gun down. You don't have to hold to restore me, Like, it's okay. Chill. Like, there was none of that. There was no things like that under the Ottoman rule in Palestine, whether Jew, Christian, whatever. It didn't happen. So from a humanistic perspective, all right? But then obviously the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire as the first point, that was one of the main things that happened. 1918 to 1922, basically the Ottoman Empire, the Khalifa was abolished. There was no more Muslim central power. For the first time in over 1,000 years, 300 and something years, there was no more Khilafah, no more Muslim power. You have to understand, this is such a huge event, meaning no one to basically protect. And the empire was losing its power. There was the Treaty of Sevres, 1920, and this basically marked the end of a very important era, and obviously the new state emerged, which was the Turkish Republic, and Ataturk, okay, and what he did. Young Turks, it is still a very active, I'm sure you've heard about it, the Young Turks was a very active group at that time. However, that didn't start then. The tanzimat that happened way before, the reforms that happened in the Ottoman Empire, if you look into it, it was shocking what was already happening. Already happening. Changes of laws, reforms. It didn't, you have to understand, nothing just happened like that. Even the establishment of the State of Israel didn't happen just like that. The Balfour Declaration in 1917 was not just, okay, let's do it. It was from the late 1800s, things were already progressing. Zionism was already being pushed from the late 1800s. You have to understand that. We need to know our history. We need to go back and research, and we need to revive and keep teaching it because they're trying to erase it. So that when people analyze this conflict, they understand that there's a context. And that's what Andrew was trying to do. He was just trying to explain, hey, there's a context. I'm not saying this or that. Please try to understand that it's not as simple as black and white. All right? But then the Balfour Declaration happens in 1917. Keep in mind, it's a very important point. And this is a pivotal point. That the British government is basically saying that there is a national home for the Jewish people. All right, let's analyze that. Where are they coming from? Because the Jews were already there in Palestine. All right? But where are they coming from? They're Polish, Russian, Romanian. What do you have to do with this land? How come? Like, do people not see and realize? And by the way, there are already different places that there's different theories of where they purchase land. Some were saying Africa, some in Brazil, different places. Put aside that, whatever. But if you're from Poland, from Romania, you're from Russia, what claim do you have to this land from any international, humanistic, fair standard? Let's put it, okay, Islam, so we're not biased, yeah, because we're Muslim. Right, okay, from your own sources, from your own rules, what claim do you have to this land? Nothing. But, so what is that? If you have been there, Fulan, Abu Fulan, for generations, and you have ownership to that land. People have papers, you have to understand, the Ottoman Empire was very good when it came to paperwork. The bureaucracy was very good. If you have, and then someone comes, I don't know who, bin Polish, bin Romanian, comes and says, this is my place now, I take it. With a gun to your head, with military support, with whatever. Come on, man. So, let's again rationally analyze the whole thing. In America, if I go now and take this guy's house next door, yeah, come on, he's going to call the police and I'll end up in jail. Why? Because it doesn't make sense. He has ownership. It doesn't matter. I can say, but I'm Muslim, it's closer to the masjid. So because I'm Muslim, it's close to the masjid, I want to come to the masjid in the morning, therefore. Like, this is how irrational the argument would be, that I'm Polish, Jewish, I have somehow claim to the land in Palestine, to Fulan bin Fulan's house. How come? Where is the humanity? Where is the standards of international laws and fairness and all these things that we preach in these big conferences and emergency meetings and United Nations? I'm just asking them. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to understand. Am I stupid? Am I need to understand? Do I need to check my math and my logic, or what is going on? So 1970, very important state-setting event for the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. All right, 1917, the Balfour Declaration. And before that, you need to also look at the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Very important to understand that. Now, two people basically, sat down and said, cut here, cut there. Wait, so you're telling me that the whole world that prides itself on academic excellence, logic, reason, fairness, all these things, peacemaking, all these nations and united organizations, NGOs, all these people cannot see an issue? No, it happened before. We should forget it. October the 7th only, it's important. I'm not saying that it was something good. It's bad. We Muslims, we don't like people to die. But man, we forget about thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and the reasons and these important dates, and how these, obviously it's an ill-intended type of behavior to chop the world into pieces, just two people. I mean, how come? This needs to be understood and analyzed. This needs to be taught to our children. This needs to be understood and taught in schools. They teach it. No, they don't. There's historical amnesia that they want you to undergo through. So that you don't know. So that at one point your children are going to forget. They're going to be like, yeah, these Muslims, man. Our own people, we ourselves are going to say, these Muslims, they're really, I think we're terrorists. That's what's happening now. We are fighting our own selves. It's reached to a point that we, the Muslims, are confused as to what's happening in this issue. Allahu Akbar. Of course, 1940 to 1950, post-World War II, the developments accelerated, and there was a reconfiguration of the whole Middle East. The state of Israel displaced so many people. It shaped the regional landscape. And of course, at the same time, the other Arab nations were concerned and started getting involved. And you can see 1948, 1950, and 50 years later, the big difference, the shift in the position. It's a big change. This is the reality. It's a big change. The Cold War and regional power shifts, 1950 to 1980, was a very, very important point. There was the Suez crisis, the Suez Channel crisis, which was 1956. And then, of course, there was the Six-Day War, mark these days, the Six-Day War, 1967. And in the Six-Day War, what happened is that's when the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza and the Sinai Peninsula happened. It was during that time. There was a huge shift. And that's what changed a lot of the geopolitical situation. And it kind of set the conflict for decades of conflict. If anyone understands or forgets, people should not forget this war that took place. This is where they took over West Bank, Gaza Strip, Golan Heights, the Sinai Peninsula. When people talk about this open jail, people are talking about that. It's interesting that somehow Gaza is considered as like some kind of a state or a sovereign nation that has it's a jail. It is a jail. Do they have an airport? No. Do they have, can they leave the country? No. What can they do? A'udhu billah. That they have to go under land to be able to just get basics. Sorry, astaghfirullah. You've been pushed to be like rodents, to go under the earth. Oh no, and like digging tunnels now, it's like some kind of, where are they going to go? They have nowhere to go. I don't know why people don't realize you can't imagine, as an Israeli, okay, you can go to an airplane, to an airport, and you can book yourself a nice vacation on booking.com or whatever, Travelocity, and you can go to a nice destination with your family. Yeah? Can a Gazan do that? And he book his destination, go to the airport, present his passport, get a stamp, and go. Please fasten your seatbelts, we're about to take off. And you understand the difference? Are people like absent-minded or what? Is the world, where are they living? Which world are we living in when we're looking at this conflict? People need to really keep that in mind. So keep in mind, please, the Six-Day War and the Suez crisis in 1956. Yom Kippur War, 1973. It was a huge turning point, very important. Okay, the Arabs were trying to reclaim some of the territories that were lost in 1967. There was a ceasefire, a lot of political issues. I'm not going to comment on that. The Camp David Accord, 1978, very important, 1978, and the Oslo Accord, 1993. They were trying to come up with what's called this two-state solution. Okay, so where is that? And even if someone would say, okay, come on, so wait a second. So now you entered my house, took my house, I should settle for giving you half of my house. What? Oh, you take it up, I take it down? Like, I just want people to rationally examine these things. No, they don't even want that. They want the whole house. Forget about that, right? No, we want the whole house. Don't even go in the yard. Go in the underground, please. Yeah? That's where you should stay. Come on. Auzubillah. Then, the Intifada, the second Intifada. And from there, from 2000 and on, till today, back and forth. Bomb, rebuild whatever you can. Bomb again, rebuild whatever you can. Bomb again, rebuild whatever you can. Same thing. We get angry, we cry, we protest, we boycott. Things kind of go back to we kind of forget. We go back to McDonald's, Starbucks. And again, like, I just, the whole concept of like the boycotting, I'm not saying it's not good. Because people are like, oh, out there. If we already did it like 10 years ago, like how come we still do it again? Like why do we have to? It means we went back. That's the reality. Let's accept it. Okay, it means we went back. So we're pushing. Like Khalas, it should have been. It should have been from, because we started doing it by the way quite some time ago. We already knew who was doing what, who's supporting. So how come every time we're going back and forth, back and forth? Yeah, we are not serious ourselves. Let's be honest. So these are the challenges, some main points in the history that we need to teach our children, we need to remember, we need to study so we don't forget. And if we are using our social media and our influence, that we continue to go back to that. Okay, so that people don't forget that we lost our jacket. Someone stole it from us and we're trying to get it back. Yeah, sometimes the means of doing that are not good, but people need to understand as to why it leads to that position. And if they don't know context, they don't know trauma, they don't understand what it means to see your loved one being killed and being psychologically destabilized, then they'll never understand that. And they don't want to understand that. And it's not black and white. It's not black and white. And if people don't see that, again, we as Muslims, we understand. But if the people, the world, the Westerners don't understand it, then where is your humanity that you claim to have so much and you claim to champion so much? This is my question to the world. This is the question to them. To the Muslims, we know what we know. We understand. My question is to the world who claims to be the peacemakers. Where is your humanity? Where is your logic? Where is your understanding? Where are your facts in your history? That's what I leave you with. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give victory to our brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us. May Allah open the eyes and the minds of the world to realize. Because shaitan, is very good at masking things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to change ourselves and forgive us for our sins. بارك الله فيكم. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.